much. Well, listening to those other introductions, I think I should have gone first, to be fair. It didn't sound as grand, but thank you, Paul. You did a great job there. Yeah, so hi, everybody. My name's Stephen, and sort of great introduction there. Where do I start? So a little bit about us, about our area. So we're sort of based in the southeast. We're part of the big local program. And I guess there's always this sort of conversation about why things don't happen. So I always sort of think it's, there's always two tick boxes to why things don't happen. The first one being we didn't start, and the second one being we didn't finish. So I think for us, big local, when it came to the area around sort of 2012, 2013, was when we ticked that first box, the starting box. So we've got started. So that was absolutely fantastic. And I think it was well timed. It was, it was time, as I sort of put on the slide, time for something new. The area, maybe not sort of around the sort of official categorization sort of being left behind, but we sort of looked at the area. It certainly looked left behind. We had a dockyard that sort of closed in the 80s, and sort of areas just suffered in shock ever since. Sort of employment, high crime, all those other sorts of things, lack of sort of green spaces. What I'm looking to sort of like share with you, just our experiences over the next few slides, talking about, building trust, giving power, taking power sometimes, and the realities of taking responsibilities. I do hasten to add that of all these slides, I'm sort of going to talk about no one was hurt, no laws were broken, maybe a few rules were bent, so I apologise for that. But if we can go on to the first slide, I've tried to put them in chronological order as well, so you can get a feel of whereabouts they've sort of happened and the sequence. So I was saying before, when Big Local came, it took a long time for us to sort of form a partnership. It's a couple of years. It's a real struggle when you come to an area where sort of no one's really been listened to or spoken to about their future or what they'd like to see. It took us a bit of time to sort of work that out. So it took us a couple of years to form a partnership. But one of the things that did come out, and we've heard previous speakers talk about it, is that we lacked places to meet. We lacked places to sort of go out. We lacked green spaces, which some might find it hard to believe, sort of as we're in Kent, Garden of England, but we lack green spaces that we could sort of access. This space that we've got on the slide here is Millennium Green, which was a park that was created around, you've guessed it, the Millennium. So it was some money, and it was a community-led project, but unfortunately there wasn't any sort of structured support, or there wasn't enough around it, so it sort of fell into disrepair very quickly. But based in an area that sort of, that was struggling in itself at that time. So the park lay in disrepair for probably about 15, 16 years. Like nobody even knew who owned it, because it sort of like was sort of enveloped in some sort of complex trust. So it was one of the sort of spaces that had a risk assessment that said, if you work for the council, you weren't allowed to go there on your own. So it wasn't the sort of nicest places to go to, but it was ours and it was in our area, and nobody really seemed to care that much about it. So we took it upon ourselves to sort of to do something about it. So we put some funding bids in, put a couple of funding bids in. I think one to MHCLG, as it was there at the time, one to Postcode Lottery. Thought if we get one, we'll be able to do something. We got both, so we had a load of money. So we held lots of events and we spoke to people about what we could do. And one of the things that people spoke about was developing a pocket park. So we did that, and we sort of put it together in community-led action. We put wildflowers, and we've had events in there. Has the behaviour there changed dramatically? Yeah, I would say to a certain extent it has. We haven't sort of, what I would say, an area sort of lots of drug dealing, street drinking, homelessness, lots of other things. Do they still go on? Yes. Are they less? Yes. Are they, does it look better? Yes. Is it more used? Yes. Are we sort of still struggling to a certain extent? Yes, we are. But the park is now better used. It's in better use. It has a better future. We just recently formed a friends group for the park. So I think it's an example of sort of where you sort of trust in the community-led action, trust in the community that comes together and provide solutions for a space. It can happen. I would caveat that it was also a space that nobody really cared about. So they weren't really expecting us to do that well with it. When we did do really well with it, they were all very surprised. And in some ways that has made things more complex, because now more people care about it. The council have taken the park back in-house. It belongs to the council now, or it's under the council sort of maintenance. So that's in some parts has made things a little bit more difficult, because there's lots more sort of rules and caveats around what we can do and what we can't do. But it's been a great success story, and it has led to us sort of developing other pocket parks in the area. So If we go on to my next slide, smooth. Just water, just if anyone's worrying. But we've sort of firmly led on to sort of, because we've been in sort of community consultation with ourselves for a long period of time. One of the things that we've really struggled with is just understanding what's going on and why it's going on. So one of the things we thought we'd do, we sort of thought we'll develop a neighbourhood plan. We'd seen sort of other big local areas that had done it, so thought we'd do it as well. So it was Medway's first urban neighbourhood plan, as you can see on the slide there. It was also not, it wasn't easy, you know, even when we went to set it up, the council didn't even have a form for us to sort of exist. So we had to create a form before we could actually sort of start off. So it was complex. I think we started talking about it around 2017. We got designated in 2019. And we had our regulation 14, I think it was February, March this year, or February, May this year. So just coming out of COVID. So it has been really complex. Neighbourhood planning is not easy, you know. We're probably the first area in the southeast that looks like ours around sort of around who lives there, the deprivation sort of levels in the area as well. What I would say is it's complex.
Excuse me, Stephen.
Sorry,
I'm just going to have to interrupt just to give my apologies, but the bell's just gone for a voting division. So
okay.
Please continue without us. But
yeah, no problem.
A number of the MPs will be dropping off, I'm sure. But my apologies for leaving you in the lurch, Stephen. I'm sure Daniel will look after you.
As long as they're not voting me off.
Absolutely not, and hopefully I'll get back before the session finishes.
Fantastic, right? So it, you know, it's complex. It's, you know, I would also say it's sort of costly as well, sort of not just in sort of time but also in money. But it's been a fantastic tool for us. It's sort of opened up a consultation even wider because it's sort of a little bit wider than our big local areas. So we've been having maybe a better understanding sometimes of sort of why things happen, why things get built, why the right things don't get built. We've been able to, as a community, sort of talk and sort of speak and sort of listen and hear what people want. And, you know, some of the sort of emerging themes won't sort of set anybody on fire, sort of around sort of public realm and sort of environment and housing and sort of walkability, being less sort of car dominant. So that's been absolutely fantastic. So it's also led to lots of other things. I know sort of Toby was talking about street trees. That was one of the things that came out when we were speaking to people, was they wanted more street trees. So that's on neighbourhood planning. If we go to the next one. So our green wall. So we've always sort of, Arch Local, we've always been sort of, if anyone offers us anything or sort of likes to include us in something, we always say yes first, and then we sort of like work out how we're going to make it work afterwards. So this is an example of that. You know, I think, you know, being part of Big Local, you know, through lots of stuff and sort of structures of support that Local Trust puts on, we have the opportunity now to sit at lots of different tables, which, you know, me being here today speaking to you is part of that. So we got sort of invited along Tracy Crouch, our local MP, University of Greenwich, Cooling Towns, which was a European project at the time. So we sat at the table and we were talking about what we could do to sort of more around sort of dissipating heat. We do a lot of stuff with a local school who had the great brainwave of putting a lot of money into a really, really nice play area next to what is probably arguably one of the busiest roads in our area. So any of you sort of aware of air pollution and the sort of, you know, the sort of emerging threat that has to public health. I think it was Public Health England sort of March 2019 said it was the biggest environmental threat to health in the UK, with between 28,000 to 36,000 people a year with long-term exposure, their deaths are being attributed. So we had this sort of people we had some construction people that had green ivy hoardings that they used for the posh developments to make it look nice. They didn't want no wooden hoardings. They wanted ivy cladded hoardings. So, but what happens to these ivy cladded hoardings, you might ask? Well, they were sitting in a field in Ashford. So we said, can we have them? And we'll put them at the front of the school. And they said, do you think they'll fit? And we went, yes, we do. Have you measured it? No, we haven't, but we think they'll fit. So I think so he said, yeah, you can have them. So as you can see in the pictures there, they now form this sort of green barrier to the road and the children. And also I think we see some massive, you know, less particulates, less noise, something we didn't think about at the time, less heat, because, you know, plastic isn't a great absorber of heat, but plants are. So the playground's a lot cooler for children now. and just makes the whole sort of area feel a lot better. And especially if in that area, as you can see behind you, there isn't a huge amount of greenage in that area either. So I think that's a sort of an example of sort of, you know, around sort of a structured approach and sort of time. If we can be put at the tables, at the right tables, and have the right discussions, we can be. And this was all free; it didn't cost us anything, you know, other than sort of our time to help out, sort of putting it in. So it was a great example of being somewhere at the right time with the right people. So that's that one. On to the next one. So street art, we get up to all sorts of things, but one of the things that we were sort of, you know, Medway's quite well known for is sort of its artists, maybe not particularly in our sort of area, but one of the things that we have got is we've got this great big huge railway viaduct called Luton Arches, and we've been having lots of very sort of conversations with Network Rail about its look, and we have problems with pigeons sort of defecating on people, not particularly nice. And one of the things we've always talked about is doing a mural. Had a long conversation. This is from like 2016, and I think it talks to, you know, my sort of harping on about time. Things take time. You know, this whole sort of notion around 6-week program, 8-week program, 12-week program, it just doesn't work. Certainly not in areas like ours. It takes time. This is a 4-year sort of conversation where we find, you know, COVID sort of hit, and lots of things got cancelled, and they rang us up and they said, "Could we do the mural?" And we're like, "Yes, we could." You know, we had some meetings with the council, because obviously it's a network rail structure, but the bit in front, the dirt in front is the council. Funny conversation. We had the meeting with the council. They said we'd have to close the road, have to have road closures. So it is a busy road. You know, we sort of risk assessed it, but it was one person painting it. So we'd have to have road closures. So they went away. And the person said to me, "Oh, what are we going to do? We can't close the road. You know, we haven't got time." I said, "Oh, we'll just do it anyway." You know, we risk assessed it. Thought this will be okay. We'll be safe. We did have to sort of scrape the wall down of ivy because it was covered in ivy. So we sort of risk assessed that, and we got hard hats, goggles, high-vis jackets, steel-coated boots, and we spent 2 weeks scrubbing the wall. I thought, if anyone bothers us, then we'll have to call it. But we were there for 2 weeks scrubbing the wall. No one came out. No one bothered us. So the artist arrived the following week, put the painting up on the wall. He's spraying it for 3 days. No one bothered us. Last day, council pulled up. I thought, oh, here we go. And they went, "Oh, it looks amazing." Oh, yeah. And we'll cut those trees back as well. We'll cut those trees back so you can see it better. So, oh, thumbs up. So that was absolutely fantastic. And Network Rail did a big piece on it. If you come to Medway and you come to if you come for the Luton Arches, you'll see it. It looks absolutely fantastic. Lots of people said things, a bit like the pocket park that I didn't say about. Lots of people come out and said that it'll get destroyed, it'll get vandalised, it'll get ruined. It's still there. Absolutely fine. Absolutely no problems. But I think part of that is around community ownership. We did lots of things where we spoke to people about it. We had like a virtual hangout, we had designs, and we changed the colours, and we put different pictures and different things. So I think when it actually arrived, although people were surprised as much as we were, they could see pieces of it that they'd done, you know, or pieces that they could point to, they could attribute to, and it's been absolutely fine. So like that, you know, that's our form of graffiti, and I think it sort of makes the area look a lot nicer. So, and it certainly has uplift that area as well. We've seen the trees get cut back. The bit in front has been sort of now better kept. There's been more talk about the council about investment in that area. And if you see that area, it is quite grim. But that's that. So there's an example of sort of a bit of art. Where do we go next? Let's have the next one up. Street trees. So yes, street trees. No, Toby would be happy with this. One of the things that came up when we were doing the neighbourhood planning consultations, always interesting about different conversations that you have in sort of different settings, and we've had many. I do remember sort of one of the sort of our ex-chairs said, you know, the only thing that we need to keep doing is keep talking. You know, that is the most important thing, and that's one of the things that we've been trying to do throughout this whole period, is that we just keep talking to each other and to others, whether that's people live in the area or don't live in the area. One of the Downing things come up with, we wanted more trees. So we thought, right, we'll plant more trees. It sounded quite simple. No, it's not. It's quite complicated. In an urban setting, you've got people putting cables and pipes and water pipes and electric pipes and sort of telecommunication cables everywhere. So one of the things that we sort of suddenly realised all of a sudden is that we're going to have to get somebody in to check where these cables and the pipes are. So we did that. We also sort of had money available to buy our own cable scanner, and we just had lots of talks with a Lewisham-based organisation, Streets Trees for Living, and they had a cable detector, so we got a cable detector. myself and a couple of colleagues, we went on training to use the cable detector. So we now can use the cable detector, and we're going to be planting more trees soon. The complexities of planting urban street trees, it is complex, but it's not impossible. I think we've proven that. It just takes a bit of time and finding the right place and the right locations. The only unfortunate thing that we had, which has affected obviously on a sort of global scale, is COVID hit, and we were hoping to have a community-led planting, but we couldn't do that. So we reached out to a local social housing MHS homes, and they gave us their estates team for a period, December last year, during National Street Tree Week, as we are in now, to help us out. And we planted them all in about 3 or 4 days, and we planted 30 plus trees. We were hoping to plant a lot more, but we also, part of that trust, trust us, we'll do a good job, was around maintenance. So, these trees are loved, I'm telling you now, sort of well maintained. And we had our first maintenance day in March, and Local Trust came down and took some nice pictures, and one of them you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there. And we had local school children and local residents come out, and we were measuring the trees, pruning the trees, doing all sorts, which is great fun. And we hope to do that soon. Next week, I'll have a shovel in my hand, because we're going to be, you've got it, we're going to be planting more street trees. So we're going to be planting more street trees next week. So that's probably another 20 to 30 plus trees going in the ground. They've had a massive impact. They really have softened the area. Just crazy things like more insects, more birds, just make it feel better. It's so important. I think this is one of the things that we sort of realised as an area that sort of didn't have a lot going on, what we were missing out on, in the sense of around the difference that these sorts of things can make to an area. We've sort of heard earlier on about the fly tipping. We had fly tipping like you wouldn't believe, but now we've seen where the trees are, there's less fly tipping. So it certainly has an effect around sort of making things look better. Certainly has an effect on people's behaviour. And as I said before, with the mural, with the pocket park, no vandalism, no problems, no challenges. They're all there, they're all fine. And we did lots of things. You can see the t-shirt, we did t-shirts, people took selfies with the trees, we give them a t-shirt. But no, it's been really well received. So, street tree planting in an urban area is complex, but it's not impossible. I think ultimately what we do need to be thinking about in the sense of around planning and sort of design is that we need to be designing around nature, not putting it in as an afterthought. I think that's something that any sort of new development should be looking to do, is actually growth, not just putting one tree pit in, but actually putting in somewhere where you can actually expand out. So that's our experience of street tree planting. So you might say, well, what happened to all that extra money that you had to plant all those trees that you couldn't because of COVID? Well, we started to think, well, what could we do? So then we started to realise, actually, in our area where we don't have a lot of trees and we don't have a lot of space for a lot of trees, actually the number of trees, and I'm sure sort of Woodland Trust will sort of want to sort of shoot me for this, the number of trees you plant isn't as important perhaps as the type of tree and actually the location that you put the tree. So we've got a lot of places where we got a lot of tarmac, a lot of concrete. So there's a lot of places where we don't have space. So we've seen some similar projects in Barcelona where they put trees in big pots, and we thought, why don't we do that? We could put trees in big pots, can't we? So we went, yeah, we could. So we found somewhere where we got the big pots. We'd already had a good relationship with Barchans, who'd got us the trees for the previous slide. And we got loads of dirt, and we did it again February this year. We put these trees in the big pots. They're huge trees. I think it goes back to that thing about trust. And I think, trust is given, but trust also has to be developed, and you have to give communities the opportunity to develop trust, because obviously coming into a school, if we were to knock on the door of the school and say, we want to put huge, massive trees in pots in your school, they're going to look like as if you were mad, and rightly so, because you probably are a bit mad. But we've developed this over a period of time, so I think this is important to understand that these aren't sort of things, jack in the box sort of solutions. These are things that have happened because we've been enabled to be able to deliver stuff, and we haven't always got everything right. You look at the sort of tree ties, we spent ages and eons trying to work out how we could tie the trees, and so that it was safe and everything else. So things go through different iterations, but they're doing absolutely fantastic. We had to move one tree because it wasn't doing very well, so we planted that in the ground somewhere, and we're going to replace it with more suitable tree, but the trees are there. They're massive different. The kids have sort of planted stuff in them. You know, the biodiversity it's brought to the playgrounds, the shade it's brought to the playgrounds, the feel, the breeze, the noise of the leaves. I mean, it's hard. I think it's hard to quantify when you live in an area where there's so little, you know, you're just talking tarmac, that actually little things have a big resonance. If you live in a nice school where it's got loads of trees, you might not appreciate those trees. But when you go to this school and literally it has nothing but tarmac, these trees make a massive difference to the children. And we've seen it around their sort of behaviour in the playgrounds, the fact that they sort of have planted their own plants in and around them. So it's been a fantastic project. So if someone tells you you can't plant a tree there you go, you can tell them you can. So, and I think just one more slide, I think. Hopefully I'm within my 10 minutes. So I just put one slide just to sort of reiterate some of the things are keys to success. So time is massive. You know, these things take time, you know, and you can sometimes feel like you're pushing that thing up the hill when it sort of takes forever. And then sort of once you got to the top and sort of roll it over the side, it goes very quickly. But also I think the most important thing is that around structured support, because ultimately you see lots of things where people go, right now, right, community, there you go, you do it, you sort it out now, community, you're on your own there, you sort it out, and it just doesn't work. We saw that with the first slide, the pocket park. It was given to the community. Here you go, here's a park, run it. Hang on a minute, you can't run a bath. You know, how are we supposed to run a park? There was no support, there was no help. So, you know, we've been very fortunate being a big local. We've sort of had this period of time, and we've also been allowed to punch outside of our area to see what's going on elsewhere. You might think, well, you should know that, the internet. Well, I think sometimes you become so blinkered living in these spaces that you don't actually see anything else that's going on. And sometimes you sort of become, you know, paralyzed, you know, because of the fear of regret. So you sort of paralyzes you, so you sort of do nothing, because to have done nothing means you don't have to regret anything. So I think what's been great about sort of the big local project for us is that it's enabled us to be able to do stuff. So the key things I put there, sort of partnership, you know, all the stuff that we've done, it's not been alone. It's been working with other people, being creative, you know, the trees and the pots. But I thought ambition's the big one, you know, replacing apathy, which we've had in massive sort of amounts, replacing that with ambition. So listen, they limited me on time, so I would have liked to have talked a lot more, but there you go. That's it. So I hope it was useful. I hope it was a bit sort of inspiring, and sort of, if not, I apologise.